Hi, everybody. It's Jim Ostrowski with the Liberty Driving Podcast today. The Liberty Driving Podcast. Usually it's the Walking Podcast. I don't have a lot to talk about today, but I am heading down to Brooklyn, my old stomping grounds where I went to law school. Naomi Wolf is having a book party for the Pfizer Papers, which is her new book that she edited. I haven't read the book. I know it's about the COVID vaccine and the research that her team did to expose all the nefarious things that my understanding is that they did. So heading down to Brooklyn. I'm working on that's tonight at 5 o'clock, and hopefully I'll have a report when I'm heading back to Buffalo about a little bit more about the book and some of the people who I assume there'll be some speakers there. I'll learn more about it. So I did a couple of webinars with Naomi. I think she's fabulous. One of them was on how people could sue their school districts over the lockdown. And she supported our lawsuit against Kathy Hochul, which led to, I think, was one of the factors for getting rid of the idiotic mask mandate. Just heard a siren, which reminds me, just to digress a little bit, it's a beautiful sunny fall day, light traffic on the throughway, but I've already seen 2 police cars. And so, when I see a car that where I know the guy has a gun and he could stop me and point a gun at me for the serious crime of driving a modern car a safe speed, I don't know. I feel kind of threatened. I feel like maybe that's a threat of government gun violence. In fact, it is a threat of government gun violence. And in my new book, I talk about the fact that there are literally trillions of acts of government gun violence every year. And as far as I know, I'm the first one who ever totaled it all up. And when you compare that to the number of private sector or gun crimes in the United States, the 1 year, it was a year that I took to be representative of the general trend. There were 285,000. So to me, every traffic stop that's not justified by a palpable safety issue, such as you're driving 70 miles an hour past a school zone, or you're blowing by a school bus or something of that nature, you're running a red light in a busy city. We see actually the interesting things. I know I'm digressing. We see we see aggressive, dangerous drivers all the time, but they never get tickets. You see them all the time. You're like cursing under your breath. It's like, what? Did you see what that guy did? No, what they do is, this proves that most traffic stops are revenue-raising measures. So to me, if you believe that government has a certain purpose, if you believe that the government exists to protect our rights and to punish people who violate our rights, then you have to understand, I think most people have been to traffic court. It's a fleecing operation. It's revenue raising. And they're not even getting the most dangerous drivers. And the reason is that why are there so many speed traps? I actually learned this by driving the 33. And by the way, the 33 has become one of the most dangerous roads in Western New York. And I drive it all the time. I now I noticed it's like, wow, there's speed traps all over the place. It's like, where are they? Sorry, I don't know. I guess I'm still live. I had a signal interruption because I'm in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to keep talking. Hopefully that video didn't didn't terminate. But so the point is, they have the speed traps where there's the lowest amount of traffic. Do you know why? And I don't really get into traffic court very often. They have to have, to get you on a radar gun, they have to have an uninterrupted sight line to your car. So when you're in like heavy traffic, it's very difficult to get a read on a particular car. But doesn't that prove that it's all a fraud? It is all a fraud. Traffic stops, which often, we've seen, which often, every traffic stop is an example of gun violence, in my opinion. If it's justified, it's justified. And in the book, believe me, I'm not saying that all government gun violence is bad. I address this explicitly in the book. If a cop's arresting somebody who's suspected of murder and there's probable cause, well, that's gun violence, but that's justified. But in my opinion, what I concluded after analyzing the different kinds of gun violence is that about 90% of it is not justified by the concept of American government, which was set forth. This isn't a big mystery, folks. Like, what's the purpose of government in America? Well, it's in the Declaration of Independence. That's why we exist as a country. When the Founding Fathers responded to that gun control mission at Lexington and Concord, it started the Revolutionary War. They wrote their reasons down. It was a year later. They had time to do it. And Jefferson set forth the theory of the American government. Now, that was the founding model up till 1913, when it was silently overthrown by progressivism. But that's still the model. So in the book, I sliced and diced all this stuff. I highly recommend. I have a few books with me today in case I see anybody downstate. It's interesting. It's called "Exposing the Two Big Lies of the Gun Control Movement." But back to Naomi Wolf. So we had one webinar, which they're all still online. I'm going to repost these, when I get back to Buffalo tomorrow before the Bills game. Go Bills. I will post the webinar on suing government officials, because although the immediate topic of concern, the lockdown, has ended, it's good to know the general rules for how to do this. And I kind of explain how to do it on a pro se basis. I'm not recommending that, but sometimes you have to go pro se. So the other webinar that we did with Naomi, and people would call in or ask questions online. So it was a group effort. This one is actually much more interesting now. And that was a webinar on prosecuting the crimes of the lockdown. Now, under the Biden administration, which of course supported the lockdown, and their Justice Department was a fucking joke, that was one thing. But now there's a new administration that actually promises to be a real justice system. And you've got a guy in there, Matt Gaetz. They're just all panicking about getting him in there because the guy might actually do his job. See, the deep state, I wasn't going to say much today. The deep state doesn't like to be challenged. Like, they control the government. And that's really the core fallacy of government, that the government does not apply to itself. In other words, if you control the government, you're out of the zone of danger. And that's what the deep state is so pissed off about with Gaetz. The Gaetz actually might prosecute the crimes of the deep state, the crimes of the lockdown. So I'll post the webinar there. I did an outline, and then the webinar itself, I'll figure out where they are, and I'll repost them. Because what you might want to do, everybody who suffered through the lockdown, including you all and my family, and I had 2 young kids who were victimized by it because they were in their college years, and their college years were disrupted. And my daughter graduated from her bedroom, and I'm never going to forget that. I'm not a vindictive person. I personally don't get involved in prosecutions, even when I've been the victim of crime. That's how much I really try to live my philosophy of not relying on the government. But not everybody's bound by my strictures in that regard. So if you want to see some, at least we should have some grand jury investigations. And, maybe we need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But at least the things that happened should be exposed. And those people should be held accountable. And they should certainly be barred from being in public life unless they want to, again, in the manner of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I believe in the power of redemption. I think most people do. Americans are very forgiving. But first of all, you have to say, man, we were wrong about this. We made little kids wear masks that injured their health and injured their brains, their developing brains, and damaged the way they learn how to talk. And that may take a long time to recover from. It lowered IQs, not just fluoride. I see one of our fluoride committee people on the call. Fluoride lowers your IQ too. So I'm very excited about going down there. Naomi Wolf is, I would be perfectly honest. I've been in the libertarian movement for 45 years. I've gotten more support from Naomi Wolf than almost anybody I've ever gotten from the libertarian movement. I have had support. Murray Rothbard supported me. Roy Childs. They're both deceased. I have had people provide support, but hardly anybody in recent years, in all honesty. And so I'm very grateful. I'm a big tent guy. She comes from the Democratic Party. I think she's moving in a direction that is very favorable to the future of the liberty movement. We need allies. We need to talk to people. And we need to work with people on the things that we can work with them on, and then agree to disagree and discuss the rest. But, one of the points I've made is that although the libertarian movement, which I prefer to call the liberty movement because I hate the word libertarian, although our political operation since Grover Cleveland's second term ended has been rather pathetic. I mean, we are terrible at politics. But our ideas are fantastic. And there has been a resurgence because Angela McArdle, the chair of the LP, invited Trump to speak to the convention. And I call that the opening to Trump, like the opening to China that Nixon did. And I wasn't directly involved in having Trump come to the convention, but I definitely supported it. And I provided some, behind the scenes support for that in my own way that I won't discuss now. But I have to say, since 2015 and Trump came down the escalator, the liberty movement has been split. Some libertarians think that Trump is a positive development. Some libertarians think that Trump is not a positive development. I have always been in the camp and have taken some criticism for it, and in the camp that believes that Trump is a positive development. In fact, I did a podcast. If you haven't seen it, it's on Facebook. I'm trying to put all my podcasts on YouTube in case I get banned by Facebook. I've gotten a few strikes recently. I don't know what's going on with them, but it's called Mega Libertarian Alliance. So in that podcast, what I talk about, I explain, is that MAGA's real enemy is the GOP, like the Bush era, the McConnell, the Kevin McCarthy GOP, and they still got Thune in there as the majority leader. And he's going to pretend that he's, working with Trump, but I don't trust the guy as far as I could throw him, and I wish that Scott, who himself is by no means perfect, but was much better. So the whole point of MAGA, which is really kind of harks back to the Tea Party movement. The Tea Party movement quickly got, which I was heavily involved in. I had the first Tea Party event in Buffalo, by the way. The purpose of the Tea Party movement was not, it got hijacked by the Republican Party, and I got out as soon as that happened. I said, this is ridiculous. So the purpose of the Tea Party movement was really against both parties. And it was really a protest against both parties. And MAGA was really, if you look at the early days of Trump, he debated 17 people. And they were all sort of the conventional Republican Party, although Rand Paul, I would say, was in his own category. But the great thing about Trump is that Trump has replaced the useless old Republican Party. What's the useless old Republican Party? Well, that's the party that since 1913, the beginning of the progressive era, has never repealed a major progressive program. And it was kind of a fake pretend opposition party, because they would sound different from the Democrats and con the gullible masses, because let's face it, folks, the Republican Party masses are some of the most gullible. Not like this podcast has an extremely high IQ audience, and I'm not just saying that because I'm flattering anybody. The people listening to my podcast are self-selected and super smart because they're listening to one of the best podcasts in the country. But the rank and file, come on, you have to admit how easily conned these people have been. And so year after year, decade after decade, administration after administration, they would promise smaller government, and we would never get it. We would never get it. Now, Trump didn't come in on a sort of necessarily a small government platform, but I think that's implied. He's from the business sector, and but that wasn't his main program. But he did overthrow the neocon foreign interventionist model. He did overthrow the lip service but open borders for cheap labor of the old GOP. And although I don't necessarily agree with his views on tariffs, I'm not as hostile to them as others, because frankly I think, but my point is, it overthrew the GOP so-called free trade. We don't excuse me we don't have free trade. We've never had free trade. It's a fraud. We have managed corporatist trade, and I'm against that. I'm actually for free trade. But if Trump's going to cut the budget, and this is kind of a newish second term kind of approach, if he's going to cut the budget and if he wants to replace income taxes with tariffs to some extent, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world if it's a one-to-one transfer. All taxes are bad. All taxes have negative consequences. They distort the economy, is what is commonly said, and that's true. They do distort the economy. They shift the choices that people would make from the choices they want to make to the choices the government wants them to make. But I can't see how tariffs are worse dollar to dollar than the income tax, which is this tremendous intervention into your life. It's a tremendous violation of your privacy, and you have to directly pay it as to the tariffs. Although it is a tax, and we do pay it, it's indirect, whatever. So the point I'm getting back to is MAGA is a tremendous improvement over the GOP. That's been my opinion. I don't think there's any question about that, because the old GOP was a useless failure. Just to explain why, the problem with the old GOP, which is now being solved because some of the people that Trump is bringing in are, I got to get over in the lane here, going super slow. Some of the people that some of the people he is bringing in are private sector people like Musk and Ramaswamy and others. Scott himself, by the way, was actually, had businesses, and as opposed to Thune and the other guy, Cornyn, and McCarthy and McConnell. These are all career government people. So that's the problem with the old GOP. And frankly, I hate to tell you this, but the Republican Party is still dominated by the old GOP. Trump controls the White House. The GOP controls everything else, except for a random senator like Rand Paul. I don't know too many governors who are any good. I think Kristi Noem was a pretty decent governor. But the GOP is still in charge. They're still in charge. And there's reasons for that, which are discussed in my books. It's very difficult to beat an incumbent. It's very difficult to beat the party apparatus. But the real problem with the GOP is that it's supposed to be the party of the private sector. We all know that the Democrats like the government. the Democratic Party is the government party. They think government's great. They think everybody should work for the government. They think the government's, going to solve all of our problems. Fine, obviously, everybody knows this. The Republican Party is supposed to be the opposition party. The Republican Party is supposed to be the party of the private sector. The Republican Party is supposed to be the party of the working class. And by working class, I include Elon Musk is part of the working class, because he gets out of bed every morning, he goes to work in the private sector, in a position where he has to produce wealth for people who are not forced to buy his products. And it's a whole different mindset. So I think there's a lot of potential. I think that Trump has realized, or Trump has been told by smart people on his staff, yeah, Donald, these libertarians, they can be a little wacky. Some of them have tattoos and some of them smoke pot. I do neither. But they're damn good on policy. They're damn good on public policy. So I think what you're seeing is an emerging MAGA libertarian, I hate the word libertarian, MAGA Liberty Movement Alliance. This thing could change the country. I know things have been dark and depressing for a long time. I'm 66. The country's been declining since I was in high school. And, Buffalo, and people say, well, move out of Buffalo. Well, the country's been declining. Buffalo obviously has been declining. And I said years ago, you just watch. The Buffalo disease is going to go national, because the big government disease is going to go national. So, and it did, and I was right. I'm right pretty much most of the time, let's be honest. Like predicting Donald Trump's final percentage of the vote, 51. I know California's dragging it down a little bit, but my God. And I didn't look at any damn polls. So, folks, I know what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here, and I'll try to wrap it up. There's an emerging MAGA libertarian / Liberty Movement Alliance. This could change the country. We have not had an election that reduced the size of government, increased liberty since 1800. 1800. This might actually be that election. I go around telling everybody, we haven't had, elections don't work. And that's been true so far. But they do not work. They haven't worked since 1800. If your goal is liberty for American citizens, I'm not talking about slaves, I'm not talking about American Indians. I know the whole history of that, believe me. Do I look stupid to you? Talking about overall increase in liberty, a significant overall increase in liberty for American citizens. It hasn't happened since 1800. If you think I'm wrong, give me the counterexample. But as a general proposition, I'm certainly right. Trump's election in 2024 might actually, if he works with the libertarians, might actually cause a reduction in the size of government and a corresponding general increase in liberty for American citizens generally across the board. So to that end, I'm excited to go down to see my friend Naomi and the other people who are opposed to the lockdown and want medical freedom and want medical truth. And I'm hoping to work with Kennedy in the Make America Healthy Again movement. I'm writing a book called Voting with Your Health. So I want to work with those people. I refuse to work for the government. I will not work for the government. Somebody was joking the other day about I should be on a list for U.S. Supreme Court. I said, well, I thought about it. I said, I'll take the job, but I won't take the salary. I'm not going to be offered the job. Don't get me wrong. I could do the job, by the way. No doubt about that in my mind. But I want to be a consultant. I want my ideas taken seriously, and I'm going to work with these people. I've already reached out to try to get on the Elon Musk Ramaswamy committee, some informal consulting basis again. I refuse to work for the government. I refuse to take a government salary for working for the government. So I'm working on a book called How Donald Trump Can Use Libertarian Ideas to Make America Great Again. I'm also working on a project to convince the Libertarian Party specifically, but the liberty movement generally, to shift away from electoral politics and towards direct action. So I'm very excited about both these projects. I'll be talking about them more. I've talked about them a little bit on my podcast. Viewership on the podcast is going up, but it's got to go up a lot more if we're going to have, if I'm going to have any impact on ideas. So I appreciate everybody's support. Lots more coming. On the way to Brooklyn. Party's at 5. I'm scheduled to get there at 4:38. I've always been a nick of time guy, but I'll get there and I'll give a report from there. And on the way back, we'll talk a little further. So lots of stuff happening. I mean, I'm a pessimist. I'm a declinist. But I have to say, this might be the moment when things start to change. We'll see. It's going to require a tremendous amount of hard work, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of resistance. But as always, I'm on the case. Thank you.